Welcome back. I expect that everybody already watched vid 1, so let's jump right into it. When it comes to nerds, the first problem is, how do you tell them apart? The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's how I like to think of them after the characters in an old Clint Eastwood movie. Now, I want to point out that people do not fall into nice, neat little categories like this. But it's a psychology true fact that there are patterns to human thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors that can make categories useful in figuring out what's up with people. And these categories, good, bad, and ugly, are useful when it comes to nerds, because there are in fact nerds who are good at figuring things out, nerds who are bad at figuring things out, and nerds who are good at figuring things out but morally ugly as sin. Greedy, selfish, a-hole nerds. And there are quite a few of them out there. It can be hard to tell them apart. And thanks to the corruption of American education, you were probably never taught to use the thinking tools in your brain box to make distinctions, to be able to discern, be able to see clearly the difference between different things and determine the truth. Except when it's plainly obvious. And that pretty much comes naturally. Even a 1-year-old can discern the difference, distinguish between different categories of objects. And he or she'd most likely be able to tell you which object goes with which. Right about now, some smarty pants college boy would be saying, "I'm good at making distinctions. On IQ tests, there are questions where you have to figure out which item belongs with another. I'm good at that because I have a high IQ." That's nice, but it's a whole nother ballgame in the realm of ideas, where things can be much harder to see, much harder to discern and understand than geometric figures printed in black and white on a test page. IQ smarts absolutely can be helpful in the realm of ideas, but when something is unclear, when an idea is not clearly understood because the person is missing information or because he's been told that this idea is bad, it's easy for him to reject that idea and replace it with something that seems to make sense, seems to be a great idea, as long as you don't look at it too closely. But it gets worse. IQ smarts are completely useless in the realm of ideas when what's there, when the truth is obscured by a thick layer of horse crap. Now can even a smarty pants college boy discern which of these two items this goes with? A fool might assume he knows which it goes with, but assuming things they don't actually know is what makes fools fools to begin with. Can he discern which item this goes with? How about this? Fortunately, in dealing with ideas, there's another important thinking tool in your brain box. The good kind of nerds would be okay with me getting a little creative with what they call a mental razor. This represents the kind of razor that a high IQ college boy needs to mentally shuffle geometric items around on a test page so he can get a high score. But can you cut through horse crap with this? Can you use it to split hairs to make fine distinctions? Can you use it to remove a cancerous growth on our democracy? Anybody who does productive work knows you got to have the right tool for the job. When it comes to ideas, if you want to be incisive, meaning you want to be able to slice deep through horse crap, if you want to be able to split hairs and remove a disgusting tumor on our democracy, you're going to need something more like this. Everybody has a mental razor. And if at this point you're still a member of QAnon, bless your heart, Yours is all rusty down at the bottom of your mental toolbox. Every American, in dealing with the political horse crap we got going on now, needs to have their mental razor sharp and be ready and willing to use it to cut through horse crap. I should have rehearsed that. As I just accidentally demonstrated, even with a sharp mental razor, it can be difficult cutting through horse crap. Nowhere is that more true than in the world of politics, where the horse crap is deep and petrified. Let's use this for a little bit easier job and go back to making distinctions between the three kind of nerds. The first problem in discerning the difference between the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of nerds is that the same word, intellectual, is used to describe all three. So let's get rid of that. There is no word in the English language that really describes the good kind of nerds besides nerd or intellectual. And so for the purposes of this video series, I'm going to be calling them true nerds. That's because their goal is to seek out the truth in order to figure things out, solve problems, and make the world a better place for everybody. In the physical sciences, like physics, chemistry, engineering, that's easy to see because you can literally see, touch, and use the things that these good nerds figured out. But there's a big old problem in the social sciences, like political science and economics, because you cannot physically see or touch or use the things that true nerds figure out, which is why it's important to be able to identify the other two kinds of nerds so you can ignore their foolishness or lies. The second kind of nerds, and the vast majority of nerds in the social sciences, I'm guessing about 90% of them, are not bad people, but incompetent nerds. Okay, it is bad that there are many thousands of college professors out there teaching kids to love idiotic ideologies like socialism and teaching kids to hate other people for being born to the parents that they were born to, which they call social justice warrioring. The point is, these are not generally bad people, but incompetent nerds with minds way too small for their gigantic heads. I'm talking about their gigantic egos. They think they're smart, besides book smart, straight A student smart, but they don't pack the gear up here to be able to figure out solutions to problems. Maybe they do have thinking tools in their brain boxes, but they're kind of like the guy in this video clip that I'm going to show you.
The Barracuda combo drill and staple gun. Just hold the wood together for me, Justin.
Hey, John, how can you tell which part is the drill and which is the staple gun?
Well, it's easy. What you do is you just line it up like this and then you pull the trigger right.
The problem with these nerds is that they don't use reasoning based upon provable facts to determine the truth the way true nerds do, but instead tend to believe that whatever they or highly credentialed experts and authorities believe is true must be true. Why do they do that? With people, you never know. But there seems to be two main reasons. One is that they have ginormous egos and got straight A's in school, and so they tend to believe that whatever they think is true must be true. They basically suffer from vainglorious pride, known in the Bible as false pride, which is exactly what the name vainglorious would suggest. A vain, meaning self-centered, self-important pride, where the fool wants to glorify himself and not God or God's children. The other really important reason why these incompetent nerds tend to think that whatever they believe is true must be true is that what they believe is true is emotionally satisfying to them. Whatever they feel is true must be true. God help us all, but these kind of nerds are not the only people who believe what they want to believe because it's emotionally satisfying. It's a psychology true fact that human beings have a horrifying tendency to do that. And I'm sure that there are a million former QAnon believers who would testify how emotionally satisfying it was to believe that Hillary Clinton would be going to prison. I am not ridiculing those people because we all have a tendency to believe what we want to believe, which is why it's important to follow the advice of true nerd Michael Shermer, who said, be skeptical of everything, including skepticism. For example, it's okay for atheists, for people who don't believe in God, to be skeptical of religious belief, as long as they remember that atheism is itself a religious belief. Think about it. Since ancient times, true nerds have had a word they use to describe these incompetent nerds. They call them pseudo-intellectuals. Pseudo means fake or false. Intellectual basically means nerd. I'm going to put a picture of a man by the name of Alan Greenspan here to represent this group, because to me, he's the poster boy for pseudo-intellectual nerds in American politics. If you don't know who he is, he's the man who's probably more responsible than anybody for America having two different economic systems, one for the rich and one for the rest of us. He was very helpful to the rich people who got him appointed chairman of the Federal Reserve System in the 1980s. For the rest of us, not so much. A true nerd by the name of Sid Harris made a convenient list of the differences between true nerd intellectuals and pseudo-intellectuals. Because this would be too small to read on a small screen, I'm going to hack it into a full-page graphic so that my beloved viewers can pause and read it. What you'll want to do is read across from one column to the other to see the specific ways that true nerd intellectuals are very different from pseudo-intellectuals. Now to the third kind of nerds. From what the ancient Greeks wrote, it appears that this third kind had been around for as long as genital crabs, toe fungus, and hemorrhoids. And they've made the lives of mankind more miserable than all three put together. They have been such a disgusting and harmful presence in societies throughout history that the word used to describe them has not changed in over 2,000 years. And if you're a product of our American school systems, it's likely that you have never even heard the word used to describe them. Sophists. The surest way to distinguish these morally ugly as sin nerds is the fact that their goal is to make the world a better place for themselves. These nerds are nothing but slick-talking, college-educated con artists. But unlike typical con artists, who tend to target only one victim at a time, sophists use their slick-talking skills, known as sophistry, to con massive numbers of people at a time, often in a form of manipulation known as social engineering. Although he is not by any stretch of the imagination the worst of them, I'm going to put a picture of Roger Stone here to represent sophist nerds, because he freely admits that he's a political dirty trickster. In other words, a sophist. Because there are so few men left anymore who can look you in the eye and speak the truth. I appreciate his honesty. And if there really is a St. Peter at the pearly gates after we die, hopefully he does too. Sharpen up your mental razors, kids. I'm going to give you a chance to practice using it. See if you can discern which kind of nerd the guy in the following video clip is. He's talking about an article written by an almost unknown writer in an almost unknown online paper criticizing Bernie Sanders supporters. In case you don't know, brown shirts were Nazi stormtroopers during World War II.
And here's what he says. He says, no other candidate has anything like this sort of digital brown shirt brigade. I mean, except for Donald Trump.
You can post what kind of nerd you think that guy is, and more importantly, why, in the comments section. I need to make a quick last point. True nerds have been looking at this country's problems up, down, forward, backward, and sideways for decades, and they've figured out quite a few things. One of the most important is that no solution is even possible if you blame the wrong thing for the problem. In my next video, I'll be talking about people who, for one reason or another, blame the wrong things for the problems in America today, making those people a problem themselves. See you then. If you like this video, why not click the like button? I'll put a link to the next episode over here.